Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you from Broadcast Team Alpha on 44 different platforms around the world. And I am Augie, and I'm the host here. And well, we are also transmitting on the Conscious Awakening Network. I want to mention those because they have close to 50 different shows over there, and you got to go have a look. They have shows on absolutely everything that both you and me need to know about. And I spent some time over there and I like it over there. So I think you should do too. Check it out for yourself. And before I introduce our guest here, I want to say something about how you can get a hold of me and get a hold of Nori also for the Broadcast Team Alpha show. You go to broadcastteamalpha.com and you find the contact feature and send us an email. I'll get the email and we'll send you some information back and whatever we can do for you. So I want to say something about our guest. She is returning to Broadcast Team Alpha, and we have Mary Joyce here. I guess Mary Joyce is that's the name she goes by, so that's what we will keep. And she is a real researcher. She's a digger that has gotten behind the curtain and found many of the answers that we all are looking for. And she has a website, and I will give it to you because a lot of you like to surf the website while you are listening to the show. And you definitely need to go look at it afterwards. She has pictures, she has stories like you won't believe. And that website is skyshipsovercashiers.com. Skyshipsovercashiers.com. And she writes articles, and I think she's got written 5 books by now. And the last one, I think, is Spy in the Sky. And you go to Amazon, put her name in there or the book title in there, and you can see all 5 of them. She really writes about some very interesting stuff. And her books, guess what? They got pictures in it. I love books with pictures in it. I'm a visual guy. And then we are going to have story hour here because she's got so much of it. So welcome to the show here, Mary.
Hey, it's great to see you again.
Yeah,
And you and I had talked before the show, and basically what we wanted to focus on is the fact that there's a whole lot of different kinds of ETs. They don't all look like little short gray aliens with big eyes. Um, and I've had the website since 2008. So during that time, I have heard lots and lots of stories, interviewed lots of people, and certainly have learned that the ETs out there come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. As far as the one that gets all the attention, the little gray with the big eyes, that may not even, or many of them, or maybe all of them, may not even be um, real beings. Many people believe that they are biological robots.
yeah.
And that may very, very well be true. There's a lot of evidence. I won't absolutely say that all of them are, but certainly there's a large percentage of them that are. And they don't respond the same as some of the other ETs. And I just want to erase the image that all the ETs out there look like that and act like that because they do not.
No, they don't.
Um, the
Now,
most recent,
let me,
go ahead.
one comment that I will say on that, you're exactly right, because some of you may have heard about the Kalahari Desert crash. And that is in South Africa, where the Air Force of South Africa, there was a UFO crash, and they got in and they got the dead aliens out, and they did autopsies on them. And I have the Air Force documents, and they say one place in there said their physiology is closer to a plant than to human beings. And that was the little gray one.
I hear you. I hear you. So,
Yeah.
and some people, the things I'm saying right now, I cannot substantiate, except I've heard it over and over from multiple sources. And some of the sources say that all the cattle mutilations are being done to extract biological
Yeah.
material that these little ETs can be made from.
Mm.
So that gives a lot of food for thought too.
Yep.
So anyhow, I had a real great experience very, very recently. It's so recent that I haven't even posted it on the website. It will be put up on the website a week from today. And I interviewed a native elder. She's 88 years old. Her official name is Grandmother Blue Star. And so I just was delighted she took time to talk to me. Of course, she could talk to me for weeks and I would have endless stories, but we focused on the one where she had the most unique experience of being taken on board a ship. Now, she's been taken aboard more than once, but she says this one stands out as the most unique. And uh, the first thing that really came to, that she really talked about was she was greeted by three beings on the ship. Now, mind you, like a typical abduction, she's on a table and all she can move is her head.
Mm.
Um, but there was a woman, and she was described as having light blue skin and silver white hair. She said she was just beautiful. She looked very human, but also very much like a fairy. So a very delicate female. And she was about no more than 4 feet tall.
Mm.
Then there was a man, and she described him as looking like a Viking warrior with the muscles and the broad, thick neck. And she said that he seemed to be the captain of the ship. He was not tall either. He was no more than 4 feet tall, but he wore a belt that looked like a wrestler's belt, and it had different gemstones on it. And
Mm.
she said it looked like he was controlling the ship by touching these different um, gemstones on his belt. I'd
Really?
never heard anything like that before either.
That's new.
And then there was a third figure, which I absolutely have never heard about on a ship. And she described it as looking like a Wookiee from, the sci-fi movies or a Bigfoot, only small. She said, again, it wasn't more than 4 feet tall. And she said it didn't have a human face, but it had a very gentle face.
Mm.
Now, none of these three talked to her, um, but they all seem to be, let's say, kind and gentle. Uh, but she's a feisty lady, and she got upset that she was being abducted against her will and that she couldn't move, and so she kind of did some bitching. And in the story, I quote her, but that's all I can do for right now. And um, then she got really upset because when she looked over to the other side, there were three beings that were like cloaked, like monk type outfits. And you looked into where the face should be, and it was just a dark void, and she couldn't see any faces. And now I am going to quote her on this. She said, I got very angry. So I said, why don't you show yourselves? This is not who you are. And they said to me, if we showed ourselves, you would not be able to handle it. Well, as I said, she's very feisty because she came back and said uh, that, something like, try me, which she immediately found herself back in her bed at home. The
Oh.
next day, she was abducted and taken aboard the same ship again, but this time they put her out right away because she said, because she was too mouthy. Um, so there's more to the story than what I'm saying, but that'll be posted a week from today, or at least by a week from Saturday. And some of those things I had not heard that way before.
Did she ever get to see those guys with no faces on them?
No, she like when they took her back, they were gonna put up with her the second time, and they just put her out immediately. So she never saw what they really looked like,
Uh,
which it would be very interesting. But she
yeah.
so for those who like technical stuff, she also described um, different screens that were in the ship or in the room where she was at, and the first thing she noticed was a screen to the right of her, to her right shoulder, and it was showing a continual play of her past lives, all of her lives, just
Oh,
almost like you hear with some people with a near-death experience where they get this review of all their lives, just lickety-split, but this was on a screen. And then there were screens at the foot of the table she was on. One of them was like on the edge of our solar system, looking out into the deep, deep space where you could see all the stars. The next screen was like on the edge of on the edge where our galaxy and our solar system meet, looking inward toward our solar system. And the
mm.
third one was able to zero in, and that's how they could find anybody on the planet that they wanted to. And that's how they would make contact to bring them on board the ship.
Wow.
So, I mean, she was just filled with information that was a little bit different than what I'd heard before. And
Yeah,
she's an incredible woman. I mean, you just don't have an 88-year-old um, native elder going on and being as free as she was with me with this storytelling.
yeah. When you say they were looking in and they determined who they were going to abduct, I wonder what the criteria was for that. Are there special people with special blood types or special consciousness or something that determines who they would abduct?
I'm sure she would have liked to have asked that question.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, when they brought her back the next time, she wasn't going to have any opportunity to talk because she was
Uh,
too feisty.
they didn't like that, huh?
They didn't like that. She was,
Oh gosh. Hey, I'm all for it. More
you
power
know.
to her.
Now, another firsthand story where I interviewed the person in person, I can't, was a guy who, since he was a teenager, was a surfer. And he actually traveled around the world surfing. Usually he traveled with his buddies. And he was down in, I believe, on the coast of Belize. And he and his buddy decided that they would go inland and see the ruins at Tikal, the Mayan ruins. So they went there. And it was when they were having a full moon ceremony at the top of the main pyramid. So they climbed up there and they were up there when all this was going on. And then everybody was supposed to leave, at the end of the day or the end of the time when the place is open. And he and his buddy decided they weren't going to leave. So they went and down the pyramid and they went and hid in the forest and spent the night in the forest. When they got up the next morning, I mean, this is like at the crack of dawn. They went where the open court was in front of the Great Pyramid there. And they saw two tall, uh, well, they were ETs. He
Hmm.
said they were like, they look like Nordics or Norwegian type people. And they were about 7 feet tall. And he said they didn't walk, they seemed to glide by him or by them. And so these two 7 foot tall, blonde headed Nordic beings glided by and then disappeared behind the pyramid. And so that's another kind of story that I've heard, you know, firsthand from somebody.
Wow. Yeah. So when they glided by them, did they make eye? Was there
They
any?
did. They glided around them and went on their way. They didn't acknowledge them. They just kept on going.
Hmm.
That's too bad. I wish they had
Yeah,
engaged somehow.
they should have had a conversation.
They should have, and I just don't know why. Under those circumstances, you think they might.
Yeah. Well, there is technologies out there that could perfectly well make them glide like that instead of
Uh,
walking.
Absolutely, and they do have technical, I don't know, equipment
Yeah.
that they can use. Now, I think just before we started the show, we briefly talked about the tall whites. And the tall whites are kind of a variation on the Nordics, but they seem to be skinnier and taller. And they were actually cautious of humans because humans are bigger and bulkier than they are.
Yeah.
And they carried a wand or a stick or whatever, which they could zap a human if it caused trouble. And it kind of made me think of when Our explorers go into the jungle, they want something to defend themselves when they're dealing with gorillas. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what we look like compared to the tall whites.
Hmm. Yeah, and when you say tall white, they are really white too.
Right, right. And see that you can't, they're similar to the Nordics, but that's how the differences are. The
Yeah.
Nordics look much more like flesh and blood than the tall whites. And I know you are so up to date on everything. I know you know about Hall's stories about being out there near
Yeah.
Area 51. And the tall whites essentially have a bus station there. And they have like I'll say tour buses of the galaxy or the universe or whatever. And so they will come and land near Area 51. The government knows all about it. The government works with them, is cooperative with them. So, like the big cruise ship coming in, the tourists get off and they have accommodations hidden in one of the mountains there. And I'm going to work up to something which I think is far more interesting. The Charles Hall uh, got over his fear of them, and he interacted with them, and the females would look through the Sears Roebuck catalog. I don't even know if those exist anymore. And then they would buy the women the stuff they would find in the catalog.
Hmm.
What the tourists loved to do was to try as much as possible to disguise themselves as human and go into Las Vegas, where there's enough craziness going on that you might be able to get away uh, with pulling that off. And that was their big thrill. And they would get their clothing from Sears Roebuck uh, so they
Yeah.
could go to Vegas. I just got a kick out of that. That is so human.
I could see that actually going into Las Vegas because there are people walking around there with masks on and outfits that look like you come from another planet.
And some of them are there because they're part of stage shows,
Yeah,
and they're walking around in costumes. So that's probably the best place in the whole country to try to pull this off.
I think so. I bet that was very interesting for them also to see how.
Oh, without a doubt,
Yeah,
without a doubt. I mean, if you and I went to another planet, we would be thrilled to go to the social hangout for all the beings on the other planet just to see how they behaved.
yeah. I may not want to come back.
Yeah, well, it's possible. And knowing you, you're adaptable enough to figure out how to get along with them, right?
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, this is, man, oh man. Now, this is something that a lot of people out there, they kind of think like believe that this could go on, but these stories you are talking about, they have enough background to it. So I am totally on board. I believe it because there are people like that do have these experiences, and there are thousands of them around the world. They can't all be lying.
No, they can't. And like Charles Hall, he was in the military when all this was going on.
Yeah.
And he said that the people that were assigned to his assignment before him, they would come face to face with these ETs and it freaked him out and they were gone. He was the only one that seemed to be able to get past his fear and begin to relax and
Hmm.
interact with them. And when he finally quit being afraid of them, they would bring their children sometimes
Yeah.
to see him because it would be like going to see the gorilla at the zoo.
Yeah. Yeah. And they are very protective of their children.
They'll kill you if you mess with their kids.
Yeah.
He made that really, really clear.
And
I guess that's reasonable. I know a lot of humans that would kill their if you mess with their kids.
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
So it kind of makes sense because they come from another world and this is alien to them. So they got to be careful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, but anyhow, that now we talked about what? Let's see. We've got one that looks like a thin, let's see, light blue skin, fairy looking woman. We have the man who was the captain who looks like a Viking wrestler, only tiny or
Hmm.
small. We have one that looks a little bit like a Bigfoot, only small. We have the Well, I'm going to get into another one with the tall whites, which I think are like a, well, anyhow, they're a
Yeah.
category themselves. And I
Yes.
want to tell you about another one. And this, I think, is a great story. There is he's no longer living. He lived well into his 90s. And his name was Bill Tompkins or William Tompkins.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know the story. Some of these stories I know you have to know. And he was actually into aerospace before NASA started. And when NASA started, he worked as a consultant to the two top men at NASA, Werner von Braun and I'm not sure of the pronunciation of his name, but it looks like DeBus, Dr. Kurt DeBus.
Hmm.
So he's working at the very top of NASA
Yeah.
in its heyday. And he said that there were aliens that looked like beautiful human beings or human women. He said they were very attractive. They worked as supposedly passed themselves off as secretaries to the elite at NASA. But these beautiful women would give the engineers just the information they needed. When they'd get stumped, these girls could come up with it. He talked about how it's like they would come along and just plant all sorts of information in their head, and suddenly they could, create and fix and solve things that would have probably taken them forever. This may very well be the reason that NASA was able to meet President Kennedy's request that we get to the moon in X amount of time. And we
Yeah.
clearly had alien help with that, according to him. And he has a wonderful reputation.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
And
don't work for,
in fact, Werner von Braun's secretary had some stories too that she talked about, possibly alien people. I think she called it people from other world that helped them with technology from time to time.
tell me more, because I do not know about that.
Yeah, well, she also talked about the planned fake alien invasion, as well as there was something she said in regard to that there may have been, I think she used may have been people from other world that helped them with some of the technology. And that may be what you talk about.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he was. Oh, by the way, this man died on the day of a full solar eclipse. And here's
Right.
this man who's been into space stuff all of his life. For him to exit at that point, I think is almost like the ending of a perfect movie.
Hmm. Another really, I'm going to take 45 seconds and tell you that story too. There was
Don't rush because your stories are as good as mine.
uh, the Speaker of the House in on the European Union. He went he was talking to the whole assembly, and he made a short comment, and he said that we have been in, we have been talking to people from other worlds, and they are worried about us. So we need to straighten out our action or something like that. And then he went on to what he was going to talk about. And people in the audience, they were just snickering. They thought it was just a cute little thing that he said. But I don't
No,
think so. I think it was the real thing that he actually said.
absolutely.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
we need,
we are as a species much too violent,
yeah.
much too selfish, and we seem to have reached this peak where it's a crisis point, and we better
Hmm.
fix it because we keep going the way we are, we're going to destroy ourselves. And
Yeah,
that's not the intention of anybody. The ETs, the ones that are trying to help us, um, they they're worried about us.
yeah, they are. And
So,
I think too that they know now that we have gotten so far up the ladder, so to speak, with the conscious development that we are worthy of being saved. So they are helping us out. I don't know if you saw this very recently. There was a really big meteorite that was coming down over Mexico City. It was heading right for the city. And on the way down, it leveled out and flew outside of the city and fell down. And when you look at the video, above it, there was a light came down, probably maybe 1,000 feet above that meteorite. They came down at the same time it leveled off.
Wow. So they
They,
kept it from hitting the population.
yeah, they didn't want it to hit the city because that was a big one. That was
Yeah,
probably at least several meters across,
gotcha.
10
Yep.
feet. Yeah, so that would have really hurt.
And it's not just because they want to protect the earth and protect us. Um, it is to protect the earth because even without the human beings, if the earth gets destroyed, it's like taking the one of the is it the protons that go around the atom? It's like
Yep,
pulling one of those out and disturbing the balance of something way beyond just where we are.
yep,
And so that could be devastating or very upsetting, and we do not need that. And you have to wonder when you think about Mars. I'm absolutely convinced that something in the ancient past blew up on Mars. There's many things that could have caused it, but it shows you how devastating it could be. And I'm sure that that asteroid belt is one of the planets that has been destroyed in the past.
yeah.
And
And
we've got
according
to
to
quit doing that.
yeah, according to the old records, then that was Maldek that created the asteroid belt. And
Hmm.
also, we know that there was a nuclear disaster on Mars because the atmosphere is full of xenon gas. Xenon gas can only be created, it's not a natural thing, can only be created through a nuclear detonation.
Who figured that out? Do you know?
I think the NASA talks about it, the European Space Agency talk about it. So I think it is somewhat common knowledge.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, there was a
In my book, Spy in the Sky, it's the most recent one I've done. It is the one book that is absolutely a picture book. And I didn't know I was going to do the book, but I spent years um, using Google Earth to explore Mars and the moon and the Earth. And I found these incredible things. And Mars is one of them. And I found three spaceships or
Mhm.
crafts that were landed on the planet. I found um, I found a whole bunch of entrances into Mars.
Yeah.
I found them only because I went from pole to pole instead of, left to right or right to left, which is how we usually explore a planet.
Mhm.
And only because I did that did I find this line. I think it was 27 entrances, square cut, spread out over 16 miles. And they're
Yeah.
not ancient, they're like new. And so there's a lot going on Mars. And that is the only book you can't really get on Amazon anymore. That book is being blocked. And so if
Oh,
somebody wants that book, you need to go to the website, skyshipsovercachers.com, and open up Editor's Corner and go to books. And it tells you how you can get that one book because of the five books that I have, that's the only one that you cannot get from Amazon now. We tried it, but it didn't work.
if Amazon bans it, you know it's
No,
good.
Amazon didn't ban it.
Oh,
They weren't the ones. It's other culprits that are trying to keep this book
oh,
out of
oh,
circulation.
yeah. And on your website also, you have a picture of it looks like a adobe house with a door into it. Uh, that just blew me away because I mean that is
Yeah.
not natural.
No, now there's one door. You're talking about something else because it doesn't look like an adobe. It is a square cut entrance,
Yeah.
and you can see the path going into it. You can see the slick wall inside it, and that's in the book. That is clearly ancient. Now that one's ancient. The first ones I mentioned are more contemporary. Uh, but the things I found on Mars are just incredible, just
Yeah.
incredible.
Yeah, there is. ships laying on the surface.
Hmm.
And there is one also where you see a metallic in there's kind of like a hill on the top of the hill next to the cavern underneath. There is a metallic
Yes, I've
round
got
house.
yes, I posted that on the website too. So if you go to
It's
global, if your viewers go to global links, which is on the homepage, there's no pictures except for the banner on the homepage. But any story that you open up, I guarantee is going to have visuals because, like you, I think visuals are really, really important. So if you go to the category on the left, just called global links, you can go through that. You can go into the archives going back to what, 2008. It's just incredible the things that have been found.
yeah, yeah, and yeah, go to the website first, and then it'll wet your whistle so that you're gonna want to go and get the book too because there's more.
So thank you. But anyhow, that's the story on that since you mentioned it earlier.
Yeah.
I'll change gears a little bit here. I'm going to promote somebody else.
Uh-huh.
There's a Native American uh, professor. Her name is Dr. Arty Six Killer Clark, and she is now the a professor emeritus for the University of Montana. She spent 7 years trekking around Central America, collecting stories from the natives about UFOs and ETs and giants and little people and all those kind of stories. And because she is a native, these people opened up with her. You and I would have a very hard time getting them to do that. Plus, she probably was able to communicate in their own language at least some of the time.
Yeah.
And her stories are great. And I'd like to share three of them with you. And they're her stories, but I do write up an abbreviated form about them on the website. And the ones I'm going to tell you about are recent. They're all on the homepage on the right-hand side, which has the 20 most recent postings. And one of the stories is called E.T. Skeleton in Silver Suit Found in a Cave. And there was this man, his name is Luis Santiago. And when he was a boy, he was hired by the archaeologists to help them do their work. He was essentially a gopher. And the archaeologists enticed them by saying they would pay them X amount of money, not a lot. 10, I think they got like 10 cents a day. And then it jumped to 50 cents a day. And then they would get extra money if they found things around the area. So he and other boys would go exploring the caves near the old uh, Mayan ruins, and they found a ET skeleton or a skeleton in a silver suit, small size, in one of the caves.
Mhm.
Um, I just think that's an incredible, incredible story.
Wow. Yeah. Is there anything about what that skeleton looked like? Big head probably, and
I don't have the details.
hmm
If you can ever get her on your show, I hope you could. I hope you can. And if you do, please let me know because I'll do a link to it from my website. I
yeah.
don't do the podcast like you do, and it would be really nice if you could interview her.
Yeah.
Again, her name is Dr. Arty, Ardy, Six Killer, one word, Clark with an E.
Oh,
Dr.
wow.
Arty Six Killer Clark. The book that I take these three stories from is simply called Sky People.
Oh,
Um, and she writes in a way that's very easy to understand. Your eyes kind of flow through the book. Sometimes books are laborious and you kind of have to work your way through them. But in her book, your eyes just kind of flow through it. So that's a
w-
plug for her.
wonderful. If you're able to put me in touch, I'd definitely like to interview her also.
Maybe I would assume that the University of Montana would be helpful to you because she is still doing Native American projects, I
Okay.
believe, still affiliated with that university. Um,
Oh,
so,
okay. All right. Yeah,
all right.
uh, you just email me her name and maybe where I could find it. That would be great.
Okay, all
Yeah.
righty.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I had three stories that are all on the homepage, so people can go and read them in their
Hmm.
entirety. This one is a little different too, and for some reason, it's really caught the attention of a lot of people who passed it on throughout Facebook.
Hmm.
And um, the title is "Boy Helped ETs with Their Spacecraft Garden." And when Dr. Clark interviewed him, he was 100 years old.
Oh,
But from as a preschooler, if they have such a thing there, I don't know. But as a very, very young boy, his grandfather began to teach him all about the plants and how to garden and all those natural kind of things. And by the time he was 9 years old, he knew so much that the ETs beamed him up to their ship and they used him to help them acquire plants and to identify plants on the earth. And
really?
on one of the levels of their ship, so it must have been pretty good size, um, they had a garden and they collected plants from all over the world and trees and um, you know,
Really? Wow.
really. And they had a water tank, and sometimes the smaller ships would go down and get water and bring it up to the ship to make sure they could take care of the garden they were producing.
Hmm.
Um, so anyhow, it's one of the most positive abduction stories that I've ever heard. And let's see, what else can I tell you about that? Oh,
Well,
he did say, this isn't in my article, but he did say that there were different kinds of beings on the ship. They weren't all the same. He
mhm.
didn't elaborate, but he said the beings were not all the same. So that shows a kind of a United Nations approach to the Brotherhood.
Yeah. When you're talking about the ships coming to get water, there is reports of that.
Now
But
we've gotten pictures of that where you
yeah,
can see where the ships are over a lake up here in the mountains of North Carolina,
yeah,
and you can see them drawing the water up into the ship.
yeah,
Or
absolutely.
yeah.
And
So
there is quite a few places where they have seen that. They see the ship sitting on top of the water, and then it's a pipe going down into the water, and they sit there for a few minutes, and then poof, go off.
mhm. Yeah, I think over time, and we're going back years now, I think we twice have gotten people have gotten photos of this happening here in this area where I live.
Yeah.
And it's, we all
Wow.
need water apparently, especially the plants.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about big ships. Do you remember that picture that was taken by Soho, the satellite that monitors the sun? Next to the sun, there was a round black ball.
And it had almost like an umbilical cord connected to it.
Yes,
Yes.
right into the sun, siphoning off energy. And that ball was planet size. It was bigger than
Oh,
Earth.
absolutely. Absolutely. And in the book, the spy book, I
Mhm.
have a whole section on photos of these humongous ships around the sun. Now, as far as I know, nobody else has gotten those pictures. I was contacted back in, I think, 2013 by a man in the Netherlands, and he was taking original NASA photos, and he used like filters on his computer and stuff so he could get rid of the interference.
Mhm.
And he zeroed in on these things, and the detail of them is incredible. And some of them, oh, I mean, our biggest planet is Jupiter, and some of those are bigger than Jupiter.
Yeah.
Not the one that you're referring to, but I mean, just humongous. And they're not all shaped the same. One of them actually reminds me of, you know how a flute has all those little keys on it and it kind of stretches out like this? There was one that looked like that and it stretched out forever.
Wow.
So, um, again, that's in that book, but I wish I could distribute it in some easier way, but through the website's the only way to get it.
Yeah, yeah. And now, speaking of big ships, I gotta mention this one also. There is a NASA print, and I got the picture. of Saturn, right outside of the outer edge of the ring. There is a picture that was taken in the ultraviolet, no, infrared spectrum. There is this long cigar sitting out there, and looking at the planet, that cigar was about 3,000 miles long.
Yeah, we can't even think of those possibilities, but
Yeah,
I know they're real.
yeah, that's a ship. Because shortly afterwards there was another picture, and the ship is not there. So 3,000 miles long, and it was, from the looks of it, hundreds of miles wide. You don't make those here.
No, no. It's like they create their own planet and travel in their
Yeah.
own planet. Um, I don't know if I can remember my science all that well, but it seems like the diameter of the sun is 865,000 miles across.
Uh-huh.
It's huge. That's huge. Some
Yeah.
of these ships are bigger.
Yeah.
Mm, just it's absolutely incredible. By the way, again, that guy, I was in touch with him for 3 years. All of a sudden, he just disappeared. His YouTube channel just never was updated again. I was never able to contact him or reach him in any way. I even explored like obituaries and stuff where he lived just to see if he had died. I could never find anything. I'm
Mm,
inclined to think that they were got him to shut up because he was revealing stuff that was too beyond what they think humans can deal with.
yeah. They do that.
They do that.
Yeah.
And hopefully they just scared him to be quiet rather than do him in. But
Well, they
I,
do both.
I, both can be done. It's very sad.
Yeah.
But, but let me tell you one more story that comes from Dr. Clark.
Uh-huh.
And this one, the title is Dying Man in Yucatan Village Healed by ETs. Now, I have pictures of a typical home in one of those little villages, and it's like you can see through the walls because they use, I don't know, skinny branches and make the walls, and then they have a thatched roof, and they sleep in hammocks. So the hammock is hung inside of this um,
Yeah, that way you
little
keep the
house, little,
bugs away.
yeah, I guess so. Anyhow, he was close to death. He had been a heavy smoker. He couldn't breathe. He kept holding on, thinking he might get a miracle. And the priest even came to do last rites for him. So he really was in bad shape.
Hmm.
And one night, there were 5 lights that came around his hammock, and they circled his hammock and they went up and down his body. And then one of them hovered over his head, and the others then hovered over his chest. And then they were gone. And I'm assuming he's peeking through these holes in the wall, but he saw these 5 orbs go out beyond the house, and suddenly they were men. They were humans, or they looked human-like. And then they were taken up on a ship. So even beings that look like us, the advanced ones seem to be able to, I don't know, use the essence of themselves, the soul of themselves, to function beyond their body. And that's what he saw. And they went up into a V-shaped. He called it a machine, but a V-shaped craft.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
those are 3 of the stories. If you want the complete stories, you need to get Dr. Clark's book, and it's called Sky People. If
mhm.
you'd like a nice little summary of them, um, right now all 3 of them are on the homepage on the right-hand side.
Okay. Yeah. This is why you and me and thousands of others are researching the paranormal. Because what we have today, if we took that back to 1901, everything that we have today would be paranormal to them.
Correct. Correct.
Think about what people that has been doing or living out there for thousands of years, what
They're
technology they
They're
have.
way ahead of us. We know from people over and over and over again, people who've had near-death experiences talk about the essence of them being like a ball, an orb, a
Yeah,
glowing ball of light. So if these people are so advanced that they can take their soul out of their body and help this dying man and then return to their body, or however they did it, like I said, by our standards, that's magical.
yeah, yeah, gosh. We are not very far ahead when it comes to the rest of the cosmos.
We're kind of backward.
Yeah.
Oh, one other thought that just popped into my head. People talk a lot about hybrids, and the ETs are gonna, I don't know, abduct you, and they're gonna take your reproductive things and put them together and create another hybrid. I think we're all hybrids already. I think there's been so much stuff going on in this planet that I don't know. I think
Yep.
we're a lab, we're a teaching
Yeah.
school,
Yeah. I think there's both of that. We have, yes, I think we have hybrids also, and as
Mhm.
well as we have in our distant past, our genetics was messed with, especially the chromosome number two. That should, nature cannot do that. They cannot cut the chromosome, bend the ends together, the telomeres are put together. This cannot happen
We are
by
just
nature.
beginning to do that now with CRISPR technology.
Yeah.
Just begin. And they've had some success with it already.
Yeah.
But again, it's at the very early stages. But if we have scientists today doing that, then societies advanced of us certainly
Yeah.
have gotten past where we are. But
Absolutely.
CRISPR technology is magical too, even by today's standards.
Yeah.
So
It is exciting, but well, we're talking disclosure. I uh, I think the government will probably at one point have to admit, kicking and screaming, they're gonna have to admit that, yeah, the extraterrestrials are real.
I agree. They will only admit what they are forced to admit. The disclosure starts from the bottom up, not the other way around.
Yeah. And I think personally, my opinion is from what I have discovered is that it wouldn't come from the government, it will come from extraterrestrials themselves. When they show up in the sky and they make themselves known and tell people, hey, you're ready now.
And they are doing that more and more and more.
Yeah,
More and more people are seeing them. More and more people are getting photos of them. So I do think that the ETs may ultimately be the ones that will have to do the job.
yeah. I'm
And they've
also,
been preparing us. You and I, in our own little respective fields, are out there trying to open the door so people see a little bit more. And there's people like us, thank God, all around the world.
yeah,
And everybody is doing their part to get their particular pond awakened.
yeah. And the thing about it is that we can communicate with them now
Yes.
because
And some people, yes,
they're telepathic.
correct.
If you go outside, I've done this. If you go outside at night, stand for a while, look up into the dark sky, you can see once in a while, you can see a light go by and concentrate on that light. Try to visualize a ship and tell it stop.
And it will.
And a few moments later, it stops. That means they know they made contact with your mind and understand your thoughts.
Right.
That can happen.
Yep.
And then you can take it to the next level and say, come on down. I want to meet you. So
Let me know.
try
Please
it.
if you have them come down and talk to you, please let me know, okay?
Yeah. It's In Tucson, we have a lot of activities in the
Right.
sky,
Yeah.
and I've had a couple of experiences where they came right down and not too far away. So it can happen, but if you go out, try it once and tell yourself, yeah, that didn't work. No, be a little patient. Do it a
Mm,
few times
hmm.
because
Yep.
they're listening.
Yep.
Hmm.
Good advice. Good advice.
This is
So
really
if
fun.
anybody gets a good story, let us both know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are a hybrid, very often hybrids have a way to contact extraterrestrials from their genetics and where they come from.
Hmm.
We want to hear your story.
Yeah.
Or if you are an ET, hey, you know my number. So, but it's coming soon because
Yes.
first of all, also the Anunnaki is coming back. Though they're not here yet, but the ships go ahead. So they are in their ships. They're here already. The
Hmm.
tall whites are here. The grays are here. There is people that actually have seen mantis on the ship. So there are, like you say, all kinds of different forms of extraterrestrials.
Nobody's able to give a concrete number. I know that Stephen Greer said that back in the 60s, they knew about 69 different species.
Yeah.
You often hear the number in the 30 range quite commonly. Then a military man said that there were 52 different kinds. Pick any number, it's bigger than what most people have been thinking about. And, um, I guess that's the theme of the show today. There's lots of different kinds of ETs. They aren't, most of them aren't the little grays.
Yeah.
And the little grays are not the ones that seem to have the wisdom and
Yeah.
uh and may not even be human, may just be manipulated.
And being a pilot myself, I do know other pilots. One of them, he said that in the Air Force manual back in the 1980s, I think it was, there was a page in there with pictures of different airplanes. One of the pictures, actually black outline,
Hmm.
it uh, looked like a flying saucer. And it said in there, do not shoot at these. They are ours.
Right, right.
They had
Yep.
outline of Russian airplanes and British and so on, so they can identify what they look like and where they're from. But the flying disc, do not shoot at it. They are ours.
And do not shoot at them even if they're not ours. There's a story again
Yeah,
I'll be posting in the next week or maybe 2 weeks at the most, maybe next weekend, where Russian soldiers shot at a UFO and brought it down. It pissed the ETs off, and they turned the. This is the essence of it. They turned the soldiers to stone. Makes me think of the old biblical story of,
yeah, lot.
Sodom and Gomorrah. Yeah, a lot. And so that story I'll be posting within the next 2 weeks. And that was found in the CIA files. So you have to at least consider the possibility it might very well be true.
Yeah, and then go to the FBI website and go into
But
the
that's another reason not to not to shoot at
yeah,
them.
absolutely. Yeah, I don't blame them. I kind of would be pissed too.
Right. Yep. So
So,
I hope
but
we've given all your viewers plenty to think of.
yeah, we sure have. And gosh, this is fun. You have so many stories. And folks out there, go to the website. That's yeah, tell them the website and maybe
It's
how they can get
it's
a hold of you if they want
it's
to.
it's called Sky Ships Over Cashiers.
Hmm.
Cashiers is spelled just like a cashier at the grocery store. And Cashiers is how they pronounce it here. That is a mountaintop town where we first began seeing all the UFOs. And
Hmm.
that's the reason for the name. if I were to name the website today, it would probably get a different name because we've gone way beyond seeing UFOs
Yeah,
over cachers.
yeah,
We just discovered so many other things, Bigfoot and little people and underground bases, and
yeah.
there's just so much around here. It's just a hotbed, really.
Yeah,
So,
there's so much more to talk about too, the underground bases and the little people, and we should
and if
do
you go
that.
sometime,
Yeah.
and if you go, if anybody wants to, they can just simply go to the website. And there's a way to, up again on the left-hand side, there are two things. One is how to contact us, and the other is Editor's Corner. Those are two things where you can make contact.
Okay. That sounds
Okay.
wonderful.
And it's
And
been a joy talking with you again.
yeah,
Thank you
this
so
was
much.
great.
All
I
righty.
I got a question for you.
Okay. Is it
And,
easy? I
and
hate to end on a hard question.
this is a difficult one.
Oh,
I didn't tell you because I wanted to blindside you.
oh,
I wanted to ask you if you could talk to the whole world and the world is listening, what would you tell them?
our world is so diverse. I think you would have to tailor it to whatever group you were talking to. Think of
Uh,
all the different groups we know,
the
and
whole
each one of
world.
them would have to be approached differently. If you
Mhm.
were to approach people in conventional Christian churches, you would take a totally different approach than
Yeah.
those that are scientists. It would be totally different. And I really don't think there's one message that would work for everybody. I really don't.
That's a good thought. I never thought of that.
Now, here, one more thought.
Mhm.
Um, we have a brand new pope. He seems to be much more open and open to people. And I've had the thought, if the closure is going to be happening soon, then maybe he is going to be like the shepherd for his flock. You follow me?
Yeah.
He has a flock, so he can help those get through. That's why I'm saying you kind of have to tailor make it to whoever you're dealing with.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think the Catholic Church is changing. In the past, all these things, they were all demons. Now they're
Not
different.
anymore. Not
No,
anymore.
no,
There's been some major changes within the Catholic,
yeah,
in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church.
yeah, yeah,
So, but that man, that may be his assignment to be the shepherd with his particular flock. Now, see,
yeah,
your flock would be totally different. My flock would be totally different. Everybody has a group that they can reach,
yeah,
or several. You just have to tailor make it to each group.
yeah. That's true. Okay. Well, thank you
All
very
right.
much for being with us, and
All righty.
uh, we'll do this again here shortly. And there's so much more to talk about. So,
All righty. You take good care of yourself.
yeah, you too. Take care.
Uh-huh. Bye-bye.